Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Jnanatimidam Dasya Jnanatimidam Shalakaya Shishram Anyena Tismin Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Vishtam Sthapitam Nina Bhutale Swamrupakara Yamdadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Tafarakamam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahaganam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadhutam Krishna Saritam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Paran Sagana Lalita Shri Shakamitam Shak Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dimalam Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Golangira Devi Vrindavana Shari Vishavana Sute Devi Pramani Hari Priye Vanchakalpataru Vyascha Kripa Sindhu Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So, what do we remember about King Puranjana? Yes.
King Puranjana represents the soul of us, the living entities, the soul.
Okay, King Puranjana represents us, the living beings,
Yes.
conditioned living beings. Okay. So then what was he doing? What was going on? What was the living being doing?
He was in a city of 9 gates, which represents the 9 gates in our body.
Okay, he was in the city of 9 gates, which represents the body. Body has 9 gates now. Good, yeah.
He was in the forest hunting animals.
Okay, he was in the Mumbai jungle hunting for girls, and then what happened?
He was attached to his wife. His wife represented material intelligence.
Okay, then he was attached to his future wife, which represents material intelligence. Nice. Okay, so let's read today. 1, 2, 3, 1 second. Natataitarthirocante griheshu grihasam padaha Yadinasya grihe mata patniva bhakti devata Ningerat pragya onamasi tadinavat. Okay, so this is text 15. I'll just read the previous text. It says that at that time King Puranjana was a little anxious and he inquired from the household woman, "My dear beautiful woman, are you and your mistress all very happy like before or not?" So that was, let's see, 1 second. Okay. So consult the mind. So that means mind, intelligence. He was refreshed, inquiring about his wife. Okay. That's a deep verse. Discussing whether the mind derives happiness from sense enjoyment or not. Okay, yeah. So what was going on in previous several verses is that King became tired of this hunting, and then he finally came home and was satisfied and pacified, and that was only when one becomes Krishna conscious. This is what we were discussing. We were discussing that when one becomes Krishna conscious, then one is finally peaceful. One doesn't have to go out and hunt anymore. Doesn't have to waste his time searching and running for so many material things or relationships. One becomes fully satisfied and satiated within Krishna conscious practice, having relationship with Krishna. So here, this was King Puranjana's position. Okay, so let's see what this text 15 says, because since the others we already discussed. So translation and purport by His Divine Grace Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. King Puranjana said, I do not understand why my household paraphernalia does not attract me as before. I think that if there is neither a mother nor devoted wife at home, the home is like a chariot without wheels. Where is the fool who will sit down on such an unworkable chariot? This is also what I had in mind. Srila Prabhupada is quoting the purport. Prabhupada said, the greatest politician, Chanakya Pandit, said, Mata yasya grihe nasti, bharya chapriya vadini, aranyam tena gantavyam, yatharanyam tatha griham. If a person has neither a mother nor a pleasing wife at home, he should leave home and go to the forest. Because for him there is no difference between the forest and home. The real Mata, or mother, is devotional service to the Lord, and the real Patni, or devoted wife, is a wife who helps her husband execute religious principles in devotional service. These two things are required for a happy home. Actually, a woman is supposed to be the energy of the man. Historically, in the background of every great man, there is either a mother or a wife. One's household life is very successful if he has both a good wife and a mother. In such a case, everything but household affairs and all the paraphernalia in the house becomes very pleasing. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had both a good mother and a pleasing wife, and he was very happy at home. Nonetheless, for the benefit of the whole human race, he took sannyas and left both his mother and wife. In other words, it is essential that one have both a good mother and wife in order to become perfectly happy at home. Otherwise, home life has no meaning. Unless one is religiously guided by intelligence and renders devotional service under the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his home can never become very pleasing to a saintly person. In other words, if a man has a good mother or a good wife, there is no need of his taking sannyas. That is, unless it is absolutely necessary, and it was for Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Hare Krishna. Okay, let's read translation again. King Puranjana said, I do not understand why my household paraphernalia does not attract me as before. I think if there is neither a mother nor devoted wife at home, home is like a chariot without wheels. Where is the fool who will sit down on such an unworkable chariot? So quite so many points in the purport are explained by Srila Prabhupada. Household life. I see how everybody is pretty much attracted and later on becomes, I use a little stronger words, trapped in the family affairs. There's no end to it. There's no end to it. It's like kind of thinking that, yes, in the future, I will renounce the family. I will go to the forest or something. But we see that pretty often never happens in most of the cases. But there is discussion about renunciation. Of course, there is discussion of not necessarily having to be renounced. That's also there. It's not maybe necessary that everybody takes sannyas. So we'll discuss about this, whether it's necessary, it's not necessary, what is going on here. To renounce the home, not to renounce the home. It's not everything for everyone. No, Is it all the same? Is every instruction exactly pertainable to each and every person? You know, what Prabhupada would say, you don't go to the medical store and just say, okay, I like this one, I like these pills, and I like this cream, and I like, just give me this. And is it working like that? No, it doesn't work. You have to have a prescription. And somebody has to examine you to prescribe something properly, that's what is appropriate for you. Otherwise, it's going to become an even bigger mess, and you'll completely lose the faith in any medical store. So similarly in the spiritual life, there is a requirement of a particular prescription. It's not all the same. Like here, Prabhupada quotes Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's example. Everything was fine, still he took sannyas, and then, when everything's fine, it's not necessarily have to take sannyas. There's so many different options here. But as I said, most often, it's very hard for anyone to renounce. It's very hard to renounce the family life. It's just like in the case of Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra was practically an emperor of the Kuru Empire, and he was very attached to the idea of his sons becoming an emperors. But then, when his sons were no longer there, he still remained at home. And what was his home? His home was not an ordinary home. His home was he was still like an emperor. Even though Yudhishthira Maharaj was crowned the emperor, still he was treating his uncle Dhritarashtra practically as he was an emperor. And he was so attached to the home. He was so attached that it became very, very unpalatable practically to see him that kind of attached condition. So much so that Vidura, of course, whom we know that he was always giving a very good advice to Dhritarashtra. Due to his attachment for this home position, due to his attachment to his son, didn't follow anyone's good advice, and that's what it led to practically catastrophe. Nobody remained of the Kuru dynasty. Nobody. Everybody was slaughtered. Everybody was killed on the battlefield. There were no sons, there were no grandsons, there were no great-grandsons, there was nobody. Everybody was gone. Kuru dynasty was finished. And only now Dhritarashtra remains. And still he is enjoying the benefits of the royalty. Not just, we won't just say household life. He's enjoying all the benefits of royal position. That means he has all the servants, he has all the opulences, he has everything. He's enjoying that. And that doesn't look good, That's now we'll explain it why. Because Vidura comes, and Vidura is his younger brother, and he always was giving him good advice, which Dhritarashtra wouldn't listen. And now he comes and said, how can you live like this? How can you live in the home of somebody who had killed all of your sons? That's pretty heavy. Just imagine something so tragic happens. Somebody becomes practically you may say it's your worst enemy. He just destroys or kills or just ruins everything that you practically live for, and then you're still kind of served. It's not just serving, but being served by that person and taking benefits of it. What kind of character that is? What kind of position that is? It's absolutely pitiful. So Vidura comes and says, what are you doing? You don't have any shame, you don't have any consciousness. You're living in the practically house of your enemy. Of course, Yudhishthira Maharaj would never have him feel like that. He was always subservient and serving. But the principle is there. Principle is there from the point of Dhritarashtra's position. How could he remain in Yudhishthira's home taking all this service that that he was taking. And then Vidura used very strong words. He said, "You're like a dog licking the remnants of your master." That was heavy. Just like a dog licking the remnants of your master. And then, of course, that was little enlightening point for Dhritarashtra, and then he just disappeared. He didn't even tell to Sanjaya. Sanjaya was his minister. He just disappeared. He and Gandhar just left for the forest. Next day he was gone. Anyway, the story continues, what happened afterwards and so forth. But that's a little bit different subject now. But the idea is that one remains so heavily attached to the home, no matter what goes on in the home. No matter, I mean, you can see sometimes, even now in India, what's going on with old people. Practically nobody wants them. They're just a burden, just hindrance to one's sense gratification. They're just trouble, they have nothing to offer. They just, keep on repeating same old stories. And it becomes incredibly annoyable. They are absolutely no asset. They're really just such a difficulty to deal with. And they wouldn't, they just want to stay at home, and they think this is very nice. This is very. They have no strength to do anything else. They have no strength to leave the home. They have no higher aspirations. They have no any philosophical understanding. They have no any knowledge practically that they can guide with. No wisdom. That's a modern day situation. They just they watch something. They play cards. They solve the crosswords. And they're so heavily attached. And then what they're living for is just seeing their, with sons and daughters, they pretty much hardly have any good relationship because, as I said, they're a burden. And then maybe they have some grandchildren and they live their dream through them, projecting their own desires through them. So it's a very, very, it's a tragic position. Of course, in some societies, they have a Turner kind of going on with the old people, or people that are considered very, very valuable, kind of, and valuable and palatable. They hunt them and they cook them at the end. They consider this is very special prasad. Looking at some societies like this. Some Guinea places, anyway, there are few. So you can do all different kinds of things with old people. It's like that's considered very respectable. Or you dump them in old age homes. They feel bored, like anything, and so many different things. But that strong attachment, it just becomes very, very, very painful actually. But because they have never been trained, they've never learned how to develop any detachment, therefore they can't transfer this to others, neither they can help themselves. So old age is just incredibly situation. And like Prabhupada said, don't think that this is not going to happen to you. No, it's not right. It's really old people and extreme. Everybody was thinking extremely sad. Did devotees ever think anything like this with Srila Prabhupada or something? Let's imagine Prabhupada was an old man. No. And then should that somebody be thinking that, okay, when is he going to go? Was that the mood or mentality? Never. Why? Because Because Srila Prabhupada had a consciousness, Srila Prabhupada had a knowledge, Srila Prabhupada had wisdom, Srila Prabhupada offered so much, gave so much, and was still giving till the last breath practically. Even just from that point of view. But how was that? Because that's how he lived the whole life. Yeah? And it wasn't anything material. It was a spiritual consciousness. And that's a big difference. Because in the Vedic culture, the old people are assets. That realization, that wisdom, that knowledge that they have to offer, that's an asset. Whereas in the modern culture, it's just, as I said, it's a burden, it's just distraction, it's just temperament towards sense gratification. Because then you have to take care of them or something, and then they always object to some things and activities and so on. So it's a vast difference between modern and Vedic culture. So then, being attached to home, where does that lead towards? Where does that lead toward? It leads towards a lot of pain and suffering. Any kind of attachment, actually, any kind of material attachment, you get the same result. It's pain and suffering. And the home is one of the most prominent ones. One of the most prominent attachments. And of course, what is one attached to? One is attached to one's own byproducts. That means sons, daughters, and as I said, grandchildren, so many attachments. But we know the time of that comes inevitable. And one will be forced to separate. But what is the purpose of Vedic culture? The purpose of Vedic culture is that one learns how to become detached from the beginning practically of life. Not to become attached. How to become detached. And this is what one is practicing. We don't say no relationships. We don't say no dealings. We don't say no interactions or something. No, but those have to be based on certain higher principles, which bring attachment to Krishna and then therefore detachment from the family members. On the material platform. But even what is even more so surprising is that Queen Kunti, she prays to Krishna, please let not my attachment to my family, to my sons, become some kind of hampering towards my attachment towards you. She's praying to Krishna. Can you imagine that? Who are Queen Kunti's sons? Huh? Pandavas. Would you want any better sons than Pandavas? Or more devotional, or more surrendered, or more detached? One second. No, you wouldn't. And still, and who is she? Of course, she has so much interactions with Krishna directly. And still, she considers, or she's teaching us, of course, definitely, that we shouldn't remain so attached. Even if you may say, okay, my family members are great devotees or something like that. Even then, there shouldn't be any how do we say? Not misapplication, but misappropriation of the relationship. Even though, as I said, that might be in reference to someone who is also a devotee of Krishna. So this might sound like very heavy lessons. This might sound like very heavy lessons. But they're very important lessons, because we know if we remain attached, then we'll have to come back. Is the goal of life to come back in another body? No. So these are very heavy lessons. That's why it said that the moment of death is the most painful moment. It's the most painful moment, because if one is attached to something that is temporary, and relationships are temporary, then one will suffer enormously. That's a normal suffering. when you are losing association of someone who is very dear to you, or has become very dear to you. So therefore one has to, as we said, it's not a point of renouncing relationship, it's the point of elevating relationships, purifying those relationships, spiritualizing those relationships. And then when the time of separation inevitably comes, then one is not as affected as ordinarily that would be the case. Of course, nowadays we may say that's not so difficult. It has become easier in this modern material life because there's hardly any some affection is still there, whatever, but it's becoming practically insignificant. Affection towards children, affection towards parents, affection towards, husband or wife. Like this case, this famous case that is going on now in UP now, that husband who was working hard for his wife, and then she got a chance and she's gone highball somewhere else. So then what was the affection? Affection was immediately court case, no? And so forth. So when this is going on at home, then it becomes easier to become renounced. But is it? But that's an illusion. That's an illusion. Because it's not real renunciation. When you renounce in frustration like this is explained that that's not real renunciation. Renunciation, Srila Prabhupada wrote one book. Anybody knows what was the title of the book? Renunciation? Huh? Anybody read that book? That's one book, Srila Prabhupada, Renunciation, and then two more words. Huh? No, nobody knows about that book. A very good book, one of the first books Prabhupada wrote. Maybe even the first book, even before Easy Journey to Other Planets, I think. Renunciation through wisdom. Try to get that book. Renunciation through wisdom. It's not just the point of renunciation through frustration. We have so many frustrations in life. Okay, I renounce now. I'm not. I'm sick of it. That's not going to work. Because if one does it in such a way, with such an attitude, that's pretty much the mode of ignorance, and that won't last. And immediately one will be attracted to something similar and get attached again. Confirmed. So that's not going to work. That's not appropriate renunciation. That's not good renunciation. One has to renounce with a proper understanding of everything. That's a proper renunciation, not just out of frustration. How many cases? We'll discuss this on Saturday. But how many like these court cases are there where, and it's increasing? How many divorces happen? How many? Maybe when we bring out some statistics, then we can become somewhat enlightened. What is going on? How many people really suffer? We all think, okay, getting together, having some nice relationship, this is all goal of life, but what is the reality? What is the reality? It's almost non-existing practically. And even some relationships that are there, how much struggle one has to undergo to maintain that relationship. How much cheating is going on. And then, of course, what kind of affectionate family or home one can expect? Yeah, what kind of affectionate family and home one can have? So many cases, so many allegations against each other, so many things going on. But because people, as I said, renounce it in frustration, and then again, okay, who is the next? Which one? Who is the next wife? Who is the next husband? And another next, and another. How many times? They never learn anything because they have no knowledge. So that's why even when one gets old, and what example did we provide to others? What did we learn ourselves? Nothing. And then you get old and you're just, somebody who has been exploiting others all your life. And then where's the question of respect, honor, any kind of, what is the value? What is it that one has to offer to anybody? Nothing. Nothing. And then you die like this, like an old dog somewhere. Without anybody wanting you practice, just waiting, okay, when is it gonna go? When is it gonna go? Sometimes even people, so many other things, just waiting for some inheritance or something, and they just try to speed up the process of someone's leaving the body. How many cases are like this? Yeah. So this is Kali Yuga. This is the age of quarrel and hypocrisy. This is the horrible age. There's no question of such kind of Vedic culture, there's some culture that it's mentioned here. But even then, you see here, this is very interesting. Even then, see, this is now Vedic culture, King Puranjana, these all examples. He said even then there were cases where if there is no a mother nor devoted wife at home is like a chariot without wheels. Means moving nowhere. What is the use? I mean, sometimes you get kids, they have chariots without wheels and they play there, and I think this is fun for some time. Or they have I think in Delhi, they have those people who never, who never flew in an airplane, they have some plane and then they make some kind of illusion that you're in the plane, that it's flying, and then you have all these they don't call them stewardess nowadays, they call it some other word. Anyway, some more political word, or some politically correct word. I forget what it is now. And they serve you also meals, they show all these things and stuff like that. You get some kind of impression that you're in you're in some kind of flight, but it's moving nowhere. So anyway, so what kind of home is that? What kind of home when there is nothing pleasant going on? There is a difference, there is a difference between expression. There is a home or house, right? I'm living in a house. Yeah, a house is different. Home is something else. Home is what everybody actually wants. It's not just living in a house or living in a flat or living in an apartment or something like this. It has to be home. Home where is affectionate relationship. Why home? Actually, Prabhupada's one professor, he said that the home, or actually married life to be more precise, is an impetus for economic development. No, stream means expansion, so expanding everything. And then one will be inspired, one will be forced and pushed and so many other things to go out and get money. But of course, inspired by dedication, service, and sacrifice. Not just forcefully, like again, it's going on nowadays in Kali Yuga, get out and, bring some money. And get and buy this and that and whatever else. Otherwise, you have hell in your life. Like I was just at home and I just glimpsed and experienced a little bit of relationship between my brother and his wife. Horrible. And then, I just came for a few moments practically, and they can't even, control themselves at that point, It's like they have to, sparks have to, fire back and forth, So then what kind of home is this? Anyway. So therefore, here we see that if that's not the case, then what is the use of that kind of home? What's the use of that kind of home? But again, if you're just attached, and we hear that kind of relationship, it's termed as a love-hate relationship, or better to say lust-hate relationship. When somebody is together just because of sex life, and that's all, otherwise they hate each other. Just because of sex, and then they're together. So what kind of home is that? It's not a home. So if that is not there, this is what Chanakya Pandit says, then there is no difference between forest and home. Then better to go to forest. And maybe one will be far more happier in forest rather than living in such a home. How much trouble. But again, if you don't have certain adhikar, that means qualification, you won't be able to live in the forest. And then you will remain in the home, not being able to get out of that home. Just imagine if there is a fire and you're caught in the fire and you can get out, but you're too attached and you're not getting out, then what will happen? What will happen? You'll be burned to death. So all of your attachments will be burned to death, but you're still attached. Which example is that? Given in the Shastra like this, who knows? Who gets burned to death because of attachment and attraction? Huh? Anybody knows? Wait a second, relax. Anybody else? Which example is given like that? Huh? Nobody knows? Sahil, what are you doing? Meditating. trying to figure out what's the example. Put your antenna a little bit, maybe you'll catch up something, something in the air. Okay, on both. Moth. Moth. Yes, moth is attracted by fire, no? By light and heat. And even though, its wings catch the fire and it starts burning, it still will not desist. He'll enter the fire in his life. So that's the foolishness of that kind of attachment. Attraction and attachment that leads to death. That's what kind of life is that? So that's not a Vedic life. We should learn how to become detached. When something starts burning, then get out. Get out, live it. It's a higher principle, live it. Learn how to become detached. Because what kind of home is this, when really, there are homes, heavy homes, when I was in, some heavy example. There are plenty, it's just, when I was in, which grade? It's 5th grade. I might have been 7th, 8th grade or something like this. Maybe I started already going to, I started going to high school. That means maybe 9th or 10th, whatever. But that girl was from my society, and her parents were constantly fighting, constantly quarreling, constantly. Because actually the father had some extra, whatever, affairs going on, and then, there's some nonsense things going on. And then she couldn't handle it anymore, and then she visited some friend or something, went to some very high building and jumped and committed suicide. And that was like, that time, she was younger than me, and she might have gone maybe 5th or 6th grade at that time. And then everybody was in shock. But seems like that was more desirable to her than living such kind of life where she was exposed to such tortures, practically seeing her parents quarreling and dealing like that. So hellish. So these are heavy things. But what is home? These are serious things. And unfortunately, the most common nowadays. What is home? Where everybody's so selfish, thinking about themselves. I know that who suffers the most is the children. As parents, ultimately, they don't care about the children. They just think about themselves. How will I be happy? With whom will I be, and this and that? It's hellish. So where is the home? What is the home? So King Puranjan also, we see even in such times, there were cases where the home wasn't really a pleasant home. And that therefore it was advisable, and it said it is better than leave that home, better go to forest. Like at least Dhritarashtra, seems like he had some training, so he was able to go to forest. Otherwise, just imagine, he wouldn't have even gone to forest. He wouldn't be able to do it. Somehow or other he had some strength. Okay, he just went. He just left. But who they just imagine if somebody tells you pack your stuff and just disappear, go leave your home. Who can do that? Who can do that? No way. I just repainted. I just put this. I don't know what. Like I just so many attachments, ridiculous attachments. What to speak of some whatever. Or I had this. I remember when I decided, okay, I decided to kind of join the ashram. And I was in Germany at that time, and then I had some, they call them like emotional withdrawals. I left my home, and I was so fried actually. I was like thinking, it's too much. I couldn't practice spiritual life really, and then I was like, and then I left, but then I said, then all those things were coming. Wow, what about your so-called friends, and so this, and such a beautiful hometown. And I say, what a nonsense mind. Amazing, what a nonsense mind. Playing so many tricks. What is so nice anywhere? I mean, what? There's nothing, but just, you don't realize how deeply rooted any kind of attachments are. And it's very difficult to deal with it. Very difficult. One really has to be strong, having strong intelligence. To uproot them, or to just cut them out. Just cut them out. So like this, different kind, that's the problem with relationships. As soon as you develop any kind of relationship, now when the boys and girls break, is it easy? What to speak when one is married? You must be having some experience. It's not easy. Even though it might be, don't laugh, because you're distracting. Even though sometimes you want to break or something for whatever reason, but still there is something like some attachment is still in the heart. No, some attachment, some impressions, something that later on still kind of draws your mind back to the same person. No, what to speak if she breaks, with you, and then you're like, ooh, why did that happen? I didn't, she finds somebody else, and then you're like, oh, you want to. Jump under the local train or something. I don't know. It's a stupid thing, So attachments are so strong, but how does one get rid of those attachments? It's like, I was just saying, now in the West there is a season of ticks. It's a summer. Every season has its trouble, anyway. So there is a season of ticks. If you go to forest or something, some kind of field area, whatever, there are ticks, and I don't know if you get them in India, but they're like they're small ticks, and they get into your body, and even if they suck your blood, they grow bigger, and even if you pull the body, head remains inside, and head again sucks the blood and grows the body. You don't get rid of them. They grow bigger and like this. It's a big mess, and they can carry some disease, and you can get sick, and there can be a lot of trouble. So these attachments are like this. They're like ticks. Suck your blood, suck your mind, suck your energy, suck your attention, suck so many things. And even though you may, kind of on the gross level renounce, but still from within, it's still growing. No, it's still growing and growing and growing. It becomes so difficult. To get rid of it. So you really have to go deep, dug deep, and then pull the head out. Pull the head out. You know how to get rid of such kind of attachments? You know what's the solution? You know what you can do? Yes. Just leave it. No, you can't just leave it. It's within you, Baba. You just can't leave it. You have to cut it, burn it. How do you do it?
Attached to someone.
Attached to someone else. Ooh. Then you get two things. Nice. I feel pain, knock me in the head, so then this pain will, make me forget the previous one or something. It's like, that's not the solution. No, wait. Do you want to hear what's the solution? It's a very easy solution. In this age of Kali, you just have to chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, There's no more powerful solution than this. You've heard it before, no? It's like you just have to apply it. You just have to start using it more and more. That's the only solution. Anyway, so here, let's just complete our purport, otherwise it's not going to happen. Prabhupada continues. So, these two things are required for a happy home. Of course, as I said, who has a happy home? Where is the happy home? So a woman is supposed to be the energy of the man. Definitely she is the impetus for doing so many things. She will inspire. That's her duty. That's her energy. She's 4 times better at manipulating material energy than the man. They can do that. They know how to do that. And if the man is not capable, they'll make him capable. It's they'll kick him out and make him do whatever they want him to do. In a gross way or a subtle way, or like they say, tongue and tears. It's gonna work. Tongue and tears. That's TNT. You know TNT? Trinitro, how's that going? Who can remember? Is that dynamite? TNT? Yeah, so women have the most powerful TNT, tongue and tears. They'll make you move doing whatever they want you to. Yeah. So they're the impetus, like we said, for this economic development and so many other things. But here it's interesting that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to Prabhupada this example, he had a both. He had a very affectionate mother and he had very pleasing wife. But for the benefit of the whole human race, he still took sannyas. So that's the best. I mean, if anyone can do something like this, that's a real sacrifice. That's a real surrender towards the highest principle of devotional life. Really selfless, absolutely selfless. And of course, I mean, one has to be qualified for something like this, and one has to make those who are his dependents or other family members, he also has to make them qualified then. That's another thing. So that's not easy. Maybe that's a big discussion what to do about this. But I just wanted to make one comment that before I forget maybe, that it's interesting. Here it said, so Prabhupada saying that if a man has a good mother or a good wife, there is no need of his taking sannyas. But all of us, at least I hope to some extent, know about the relationships of mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, no? So then where is the question of, if one may have a good wife and one may have a affectionate mother, but then will 2 of them get together? That's another big question. That's an enormously big question. And most likely it doesn't happen. Unless they're both really, really strongly culturally rooted and trained. And then at least for sake of, again, larger family interests, they cooperate. So that's another challenge. You see that home, actually, family life, home life, it's all a challenge. And inevitably there is something that will impel someone to practically desire, hopefully, to leave the home. Even if one is incapable of doing so, of course, in that case, if one is incapable of leaving the home, then that home will turn, like we said, it will turn like a forest fire. And that's not going to be good for that person. So therefore, we practice spiritual life, try to learn detachment, and we try to spiritualize relationships. And as we said in the beginning, it depends. It's not each and every position same for everyone. What should one do? And one should see what is my condition, what is my position, what can be done, what should be done. It's like this. But for sake, like here, this is the ultimate, this is the highest principle. For sake of benefiting everybody else, if one is as qualified as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Well, let's reduce a little bit the standard. At least if one is qualified, knowing Krishna to some extent and being capable of giving that to others, then one should leave the home. Like Srila Prabhupada said, Srila Prabhupada, anyway, there's a whole very deep discussion and description of Srila Prabhupada not wanting to take sannyas. He had a home. And he said, I was forced by my spiritual master. And it was very difficult for him. But still, he said, later on I realized what a blessing that was. See, he left few of his children and Krishna gave him thousands of. So it's not easy. It's not easy, definitely it's not easy, but advice is, if there is no suitable, there's no spiritually conducive and inspiring and supporting home, then better one leaves it. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, this is a big subject and topic and whatever, so any comments or questions on it? You want to leave home? Okay, well, can we take sannyas after marriage? Yes, you can take sannyas after marriage, but it will be more difficult and more unlikely because you have to get permission of your wife to take sannyas, which she will never give you. And what are you going to do? And why wasting so many years to get someone's permission? Which you will not get. There's no but like that. Huh?
Both want to go one person.
Both want to go. I don't know. You show me. Where are such examples? Huh? Divers?
If you want to give divorce, then okay.
Divorce. Yeah, they can dive together. I mean, okay, anything else? That was such a serious topic. No questions. Okay.
Actually, with these things, all these things which you mentioned in the Shastra about this one ashram.
Okay.
So we met some people outside of food distribution, some youths are
Is that a comment?
No, question.
You can speak it out here.
Can I come here?
Yeah, come because it's not all. Turn the left. I'm tired of looking at it anyway.
So actually,
There. I don't know. Sit there.
yeah, I'm saying.
No, there.
Okay, I'm go there.
Don't feel that.
Yeah, don't break anything.
So actually, this time, like,
Sit down.
so actually, like in this time, in this modern age, so all the things like as a brahmachari, as a vanprastha and grasta, we tell this thing to the people, like youths and so many women people, and they get like scared. Okay, they think okay, they will like they will think okay, we will brainwash them, as people think they have misconception. So very difficult things to put this topic in front of the people. See, okay, this mental life is like hellish, and without spiritual culture, there is no something nice relationship with your family members. So how to like it's very difficult to
I
do.
don't know how you're explaining this to people. They get afraid.
Sometimes people get afraid. So that's a very
That's what I'm saying. I don't know how to explain it.
peaceful generally.
How do you make them afraid?
They get left. They will think, okay, living family and this type of things because they heard from some TVs and this they see from.
But that's what I'm saying. That's very difficult. That conception or idea of living family is just one of the most inconceivable ideas. It's very difficult because people are so attached. Like you're attached to something. What is the other example? Let's say you're drinking very hot tea. You like the tea, but it's so hot it's burning everything. No, you can't give it up. So it's just like that. So that becomes a problem. That becomes a problem. It's burning, family life. It's burning, but still you're so attached to this. So that's why we don't tell to people you have to renounce. That's not what we tell them. But like Srila Prabhupada told them, like Srila Prabhupada said, if everything is nice, don't leave it. No, don't take sannyas. Prabhupada concludes the purpose. He said, everything is nice, don't leave it. Of course, we know nothing is ever nice. That's another thing, but still, he gives like an hope, little, it's not immediately like kind of cut. It's not immediately cut. People will realize, you first give them something positive, you first give them some options, they'll realize themselves, don't worry. Prabhupada just said, first you start chanting, take prashadam, later on there is solution for each and every problem. So gradually. Then you won't have to tell them to leave it and run away themselves. But in a positive way. Okay? Okay, 9 o'clock we'll stop. So Prabhupada ki jai, Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Krishna Guruji.